it's Rachel with Journey Back Quilts. In this series, we are making traditional quilt blocks. This lesson, we're going to be making the Card Trick Block. Let's get started. All right, to make this Card Trick Block, we're going to need several different colors of fabric. So you're going to need 4 different colors plus your background. You'll need 4 5.5-inch background, and these are all 5.5-inch blocks. You'll need 2 of one color, 2 of color 2, 2 of color 3, and 2 of color 4. So we're going to be making half square triangles 2 at a time with 1 of each of these fabrics with a background. So I'm going to grab a background, grab my color, put those right sides together, and then we're going to sew 1/4 inch away from this diagonal, and we need to draw a line down the center. So go ahead and mark a diagonal line down the center of each of your, either all of your backgrounds or one of each of all of your colors. And then we're going to take them to the sewing machine and make them half square triangles 2 at a time by sewing on either side of the line. You can learn how to do that more in the video description up above in that link. And I'm going to go ahead and go do this, and then I'll come back here to square them up with you. I'll see you in a second. All right, now I've made 2 half square triangles out of each of the colors. I have ironed them towards the darker color fabric away from my background, and we're going to trim up 1 of each of these colors to our 4.5-inch mark. So 4.5-inch square, and then we're going to leave these other 4 for a minute. So go ahead and square these up. Remember, the way to do that is put the diagonal of your ruler on the diagonal of your block. And yes, they are about 5 inches, so you're going to trim off about 1/4 inch. I want to trim up all 4 sides, so I'm going to put the diagonal of the ruler on the diagonal of my block. Do 2 sides, and then rotate this baby. So these are the 2 I just trimmed up. And now I can line it up with 4.5 and 4.5 with the diagonal still sitting right there on the diagonal of my block, and then trim off the rest of these. Okay, so go ahead and do that to just 4 of your blocks. You're going to do that to each of one of the colors. Okay, and I'll see you back here in just a second. All right, so I have 4 of these trimmed up to 4.5. I didn't trim the other 4 yet because we're going to cut those in a diagonal. So this is the tricky part. So we're going to be making 1/4 square triangles with these blocks. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut all of these at the same time. So I'm just going to line them up the same exact way with the background fabric going on the same side and the colors on the same side. And we're going to cut the diagonal this way so that we have 2 1/4 square triangles, and one of these is actually not going to get used in this one block, but if you were making 2 blocks, you can make another set of these 1/4 square triangles. Okay, so I'm going to cut that in a diagonal. Right, so we're going to use half of these for one, and then we're going to take our other 4 fabrics, and I'm going to stack them going the same direction so I can cut them all 4 at the same time. You don't have to cut them all at the same. If you want to cut just one at a time, that's totally fine too, but this saves on some time. Okay, so I'm going to cut these at a diagonal as well. Okay, and then we're going to set these aside to go with our 1/4 square triangles to make those. And then we're going to cut these in half again. So what I'm going to do is line up my point and a straight line here on my block. Okay, so these are actually not going to be used, but we're going to use one side, and we're going to make an hourglass block. So something like that. And we're going to sew these two together and these two together, and then we'll make an hourglass block with these 4 different fabrics. So let's go to the sewing machine and put these together, and then these as well, we can go ahead and chain piece those. So we're just going to line these up, raw edges together, right sides together, and the points kind of coming together, and then we're going to square those up to the 4.5-inch blocks when we're all done. I just didn't want to square those up beforehand and them not be large enough for this block. So let's go to the sewing machine. Actually, back up just a second. I want to show you how this goes together because it can get confusing. So these are our corners, the half square triangles that are measuring 4.5 inches. And I'm going to put them in opposite colors this way. And then our quarter square triangles are going to go like so. So the white is at the top. Like that. Can you see how it's kind of coming? All right, and so this needs the color here. So we put the correct color with the correct block. And this one's going here. This one's going here. So you can see the half square triangle, the big half is going on this side. The little quarter square triangle is going on this side. And there. Okay, can you see it coming together? So much fun. All right, and then we've got this going here, this here, this here, and this here. Ta-da! Look at that. Oh, it's so fun. Okay, so we're going to make our hourglass block here and then finish off our quarter square triangles here and then finish putting it together. Let's go to the sewing machine. All right, taking the quarter square triangle right from my board, I'm going to put these right sides together, lining up the raw edges and then lining up those points together so that we get a somewhat square block. Now you may want to start with a leader fabric, which is just a scrap piece of fabric that you're going to put through the sewing machine first. I'm just going to grab one out of my trash bin, just some extra salvage edges, salvages. And start that first, and then just lift my foot with my needle down, put that in there, and then keep it going. Okay, and then I'm going to grab my next block, put those right sides together, same thing, line up those points and the raw edges, and I'm just going to chain piece these. Okay, now before we go to the ironing board with these, I'm going to go ahead and piece my my hourglass blocks together 2 at a time. So I'm going to put these right sides together, and I'm going to start sewing in this point here so that I'm not starting in that little point. That just makes it a little bit easier. And so that at a 1/4 inch seam. Same thing with these, right sides together. This is the seam I want to do, but I want to start here, so I'm just going to flip it over so the red is on top. Make sure those are right sides together and the raw edges are lined up before you sew them down. Okay, now let's take these to the ironing board, clip apart those connecting threads. Okay, I'm going to iron this towards the colored side so that we keep the seam away from the background. These are so pretty. Okay, and then these, we want them to go opposite. So if you remember, we had the pink on the right and green on the bottom, just like this. So I'm going to iron them going towards the red or the pink side. That way they can nest. Okay, let's go ahead and take these ones back and then we'll square everything up once we're done. So we're going to put these right sides together, nesting those seams in the center. Since they're going opposite direction, we can just kiss them together and then line up that raw edge and let's go sew it down. So I'm going to start with my leader fabric again since we're going to sew this little point. That way our machines don't eat those little points of our fabric. Okay, back to the ironing board. And we can spin these seams if you want, or you can open them, or just iron them over to one side if you want. I like to spin them. It's fun. Plus, you get a really nice flat block this way. It's fun to see that little 4-patch pop in the middle. Then flip it over, make sure everything looks good. Okay. Now we want to square this up to 4.5 inches. So to do that, we're going to put the diagonal on the diagonal of the block, just like we do half square triangles, but we want to line up 2.25 inch in the center. So it's hitting right there at that point. And we have just a little bit to square up on each side. So we're going to do these two sides and then rotate. Maybe it wants to run away from me. And now we can line up 4.5 on the bottom and the top, but our diagonal is still sitting there on the diagonal of our block, and 2.25 is right there in the center. And now we can square up these other two sides. Now we have our hourglass block done. So cool. And now we need to square up these blocks as well. So we're going to do the exact same thing. We're going to put the diagonal on the diagonal of our block and 2.25 right at that point where it hits right in the middle. And I'm going to rotate it and just see if maybe it's easier to do the diagonal this way. Yes, I think it is. So if you put the diagonal of your ruler on the smaller end where we made our half square triangles before, and 2.25 is that center mark. Okay, so we're going to square up these two lines, two sides. Okay, and then rotate. So 4.5 is our mark. I don't know if I've been saying 4.25. It's supposed to be 4.5. 4.5 block. Okay, here we go. And I'm going to square up these two sides. And there we go. Awesome. Perfect. Okay, let's do the other 3 and then we'll put this baby together. Okay, now that those are all squared up, let's go ahead and lay this out. So I'm going to put the hourglass block in the center, and then we're going to line up these blocks. So just remember the small portion of our quarter square is going next to our half square, just like that. Oh, look at that fun block. And that wasn't so bad, was it? Quarter square triangles aren't that hard. And you already have learned hourglass blocks and half square triangles. So there you go. You learned a new technique with this block. And it's so cute. I love it. So now we're just going to sew it together like a 9-patch, like we have a lot of our other blocks. So we've got 3 rows of 3. We're going to nest those seams when we iron them in opposite directions, and we'll be able to put this block together quickly and easily. So let's go finish it. All right, I'm going to go ahead and start with my leader fabric still, because we may have some bulky seams to iron down. So I'm just taking the far right top block to the middle block and putting those right sides together. Sew those down at a 1/4 inch seam. Line up those raw edges. And I'm leaving the third block on my design board to sew to this row in a minute. So we're just making 3 rows of 2 to start. So now I'm at the middle right to the center. Make sure those go right sides together. Line up your raw edges. Okay, lower right and center. Lower center, right sides together. Okay, now that we're done with those, since they're all chain pieced, I'm going to take them off in the opposite direction that I just sewed them. So this is the bottom. So I'm going to clip apart that connecting thread and I'm going to put it back on the bottom. And then this one is the center. Put it back on my board with the center. And then I'm back at the top again. So start with my leader fabric. Go ahead and sew that down. Open that up. And I'm just going to finger press it open. Just flop it open for now. Add this block. Make sure it's going the right direction. Right sides together. And I'm going to rotate it and start it on this side. Okay, let's clip apart those connecting threads and go back to the ironing board real quick. And like I said, we want to iron these in opposite directions. So the top and bottom row, I'm going to iron out towards the outside block. Very nice. The center row, I'm going to iron in towards the middle. I might use my clapper to help hold and set that seam a little better. And same with the outside edge here. We're going to iron it towards the outside. Okay, now this is the part you need to pay attention to. You do want to make sure that your blocks are matching up with the same colors on each side so that we have these card tricks going on. Okay, so I'm going to just put this one right sides together with this, nest those center seams, and I just worry about this first one here. I just get it nested so past that point, which helps anchor the stitches down, and then I can adjust this area over here. Okay, so let's go to the sewing machine. All right, again, I'm just nesting that first set of seams that I'm going to pass first. Make sure that they are where they're supposed to be. Okay, now that those are done, I'm going to pause, let my foot be my third hand, and readjust these layers over here, and then keep sewing. I'm not pulling or stretching on my fabric though, remember. Just want to go real smooth. Let the feed dogs do the work for you. Okay. Here's the moment of truth for this one. Did we do good? Oh yeah. Oh, that looks awesome. Okay, let's add the other side. Make sure it's laid out correctly before you put it right sides together. And nest those seams. I'm going to start with my leader fabric just because of the seams in the half square triangles and quarter square triangles. We don't want to have the sewing machine sucking those down in there. Just double check it. Okay, and then pause, readjust your layers, make sure that they're nested and lined up. All right, let's go back to the ironing board. And I think I want to open these seams so they lay flatter in my quilt. You could just iron them going towards the center, towards the outside. Last step, let's square this up. Make sure that it is 12.5 inches. And we want to make sure we don't cut a 1/4 inch, more than a 1/4 inch away from the points on our block here. So 4 1/4 is this line right down this first set of blocks. And same with right here, 4 1/4. And that will help you find your center so we can trim off any excess. There really isn't a lot. There's a little bit here at the end. And it looks great. Great job making this card trick block. Hey, thanks so much for joining me today in making this card trick block. I hope that you enjoyed this and you're going to go try it for yourself. We would love to see the pictures of the blocks that you're making in this series. You can post them on our free Facebook page, which is in the description box below. If you would like more help in your quilting journey, I invite you to join our society, a membership where you will get a library full of quilting tutorials like this one, access to me and other quilters from around the world, discounts on products and services, and so much more. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button, and I'll see you next week where we make the whirlwind block. See you then! At the end of this series, which we're almost done, we'll have a quilt finished with 16 12-inch blocks, finished with borders and cornerstones and all the things. Yeah. Lots of different fun things going on. Yay! Don't forget to hit that subscribe button, and I'll see you next week where we're going to make the whirlwind block. Say that 10 times fast. See you then!